situation and what are the steps to move forward. Like some people are doing this and there is no way out. That's like, fuck it, I'm gonna do this until hopefully they get life insurance or what have you. But what's the first step when you start to look upward, even though you're still under the dirt, you're looking upwards towards the sun?
Oh yeah.
What are those steps to say, okay, this is where you start. This is how you start to build, recover your credit, whatever that might be. Those are the stories people are missing, but that everyone else has. Not just professional athletes, but everyday citizens. Like they have job transitions or they lose the job or they get phased out. What's the advice you would give to someone in today's economy with the job market as it is? Like, oh, is this a real job or an AI posting this? Like, you know, like, what's your advice for that? That would be awesome to hear. That we could share to people that may not. Yes.
I mean, there's so much that goes into that, right? I mean, the average person right now doesn't, it's not that they don't know what to do, it's that they don't know what questions to ask, right? Everybody knows that they want to be in like a better financial situation generally. Like even our most wealthy clients, they want to be in a better financial situation, right? But they don't know where to start. I was doing an educational seminar last night, and I was focused on Social Security. And I had people in there, they were asking questions, and these were, you know, intelligent, you know, people that had lived their whole lives in the financial systems that we have. And I was giving them answers, and they were shocked. They were floored because they're like, wait, they're going to give me this and tax it and count it towards my, I was like, yes, that's how the system works. And so most people, they just don't know where to start, right? So somebody who was, like you said, like in a downward spiral, right? First place to start is, what was the catalyst for the spiral? Like, what was the first step down, right? Because once we understand what that is, we can start trying to figure out how to counteract it. All right. So, I mean, sometimes it was a medical event. Sometimes it was a car accident or
lost their job, like transition from professional athlete to a regular athlete, and there's no income coming in every month or whatever their payment schedule was. Like, the individuals have to deal with that when they get phased out of a position or they get downsized or another company buys their individual place where they are. Like, what's that plan? Like, it's not a medical emergency, but holy shit, you just lost your job. You're 40, 30, whatever it is. You're not right out of college. You have some experience. What do you do? How do you adjust your budgeting and your everything to say, all right, I have to repivot until income comes in or the investments, or like, what's that look like?
So that's really interesting. So what we do there hinges on one really important fact, and that's how quickly they can get another job, right? We call this the employee transition market. This is one of our biggest markets, honestly. And helping them to figure out where the money they had prior is and what to do with it is the first step, right? Because if they're able to transition quickly into a new job, then we just transition whatever they had in their previous employment over to new accounts, so it's back under their control and they can continue growing.
401k, stock option.
401k, stock, ESOP, stock option plans, 403bs, 457s, things like that. Sometimes maybe they work for a smaller employer, they don't have any of that. They had the employer just set up like a simple IRA or a SEP IRA if they were, you know, personally employed, and their own personal business went under, right? That happens too.
True.
And so that's the first step, is figure if they get a new job, it's an easier transition. If they don't, I mean, then we're talking about, you know, like during COVID, you know, people were laid off for 6, 9, 12 months, right? Yeah. Take a look at what their living situation is. You know, we start at the basics. Are you married? Do you have kids? Do you have a mortgage? You know, what are your absolute responsibilities? You know, the non-negotiables, as we call them, right? Once we have that figured out and say, okay, how much is that? You know, monthly, annually, how much is that? And we basically just work from there. If they're not able to find a job, like, unfortunately, the tech sector is young, right? I went to a seminar, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago, and this was before AI. This was like 2019-ish, right? So maybe 6 years ago. And there were MIT grads there that were in their late 40s, early 50s that couldn't get hired because Facebook doesn't want to hire a 50-year-old. and obviously I don't know that for a fact.
Overqualified or
Yeah, exactly. They're overqualified. They're not like, with the new trends, and they don't understand social media or whatever bogus reason they're given,
Right.
And so they're there and they're, getting up on stage and they're talking about it. It's like, I'm 50 years old. I've got 20 years of experience, an MIT grad. I can't get a job, and for those people, it becomes a totally different matter. It becomes less about how to preserve what they have and more about how to survive until they find something new.
A lot of times, or transition into something of their own. Because how are you going to work for someone when industry says that you've been aged out? Like, it's like us trying to play football again.
Yeah.
David looks like he can still play.
Yeah, right.
I might have a corner. I might be able to run down on the new
Kickoff.
kickoff.
We got
The way
one
they have
new
it now, I want to make it home. No, we're not going to do that. But I could probably run down on the new
Yeah, that
kickoff.
one. That's just a little jog,
But again, that's different. Like, now, could we do 4 whole series? Zombie Apocalypse, I'll make it through 4 whole series, but that'll be it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's my last series.
Yeah.
You mentioned something, non-negotiables. That's something that a lot of people aren't aware of. I know I wasn't aware of, because a lot of us don't write down a budget. Like, even starting as simple as that, just writing down a budget. We all think we have all these expenses that are all this is necessary. But when we actually write it down, it's like, you can get rid of this. You haven't used this in months. It's almost like cleaning out your closet with old clothes.
So the first step in our process is a cash flow, right? Ryan and I have done this dozens of times, right? It's a cash flow. And we always say, because sometimes people will be like, well, I make a lot. Like, I don't need to do that. Be like, it doesn't matter if you make $15 an hour or 15 million a year. We need to know what you're working with, right? And there's 2 sections of the cash flow. There's discretionary and there's non-discretionary, right? Non-discretionary are the non-negotiables. Your car payment, your car insurance, your life insurance, your mortgage, your rent, your utilities, your child care costs, right? I mean, if you got kids these days, I've got 2 small children, right? My kids, I mean, I also have, a nice house. I have a, decent sized mortgage, but like my babysitting bills on a monthly basis are more than my old rent. And that's a thing. My wife works, and and it's these are the non-negotiables that oftentimes when we're doing this cash flow with people, we look at it, and the majority of the spending, I mean, aside from rent and utilities, sways towards the negotiables, if you want to call them that, right?
Come on in.
Thank you so much.
Who's having what?
The very
Who's having
best
what?
of American whiskey.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, y'all got to say what's up.
Yeah.
So what are these drinks? You should tell
Yeah,
us.
so what I...
Much prettier than I normally order for myself.
Well, hello. I am Kelly, the general manager of American Whiskey in Midtown, New York. So I just brought them a couple of drinks, some of our signatures. This is our Tequila Sunrise is there. This is a Manhattan. That's an old fashioned. And this is not, we're just going to call it the David drink. So that's David's drink. Oh, but anyway, hope you guys enjoy. Cheers to American Whiskey. And I just wanted to tell you that bottle of Eagle Rare is one of our private selections in our barrels. So, and it is very good. I'll let you have a taste when you guys are done.
So you were aware of it when you
Yeah.
brought it over. You know it.
You didn't see my eyes.
Yeah.
First, he's a former vice president for the NFL alumni of NFLPA, formerly president NFLPA for Arizona chapter. Brother, good to see you, man. Looking good.
But I mean, I've seen crazy amounts of money on a monthly basis going towards that, like to the point where they're unable to do other things that they need to do. Yeah, because they drink like 3 coffees a day. They get lunch. They get snacks. I've been in finance for about 10 years, and in the early stage of my career, I was in Boston one day, meeting with this very nice young woman, a young professional. She was like 25, 26, and we're sitting there. We're doing the cash flow. We're doing the budget sheet, and I could not figure out why the numbers didn't add up. I'm racking my brain. I can't figure it out. And we're in the lobby of her building, the building she worked in. And I'm like, you know what? There's a Starbucks right there. Like, how often do you go get coffee? Right? She's like, oh, I get a coffee in the morning. I grab some breakfast. I get a coffee for lunch. I grab lunch. I get a coffee before I leave. Sometimes I come down for snacks. I'm like, oh, there it is. I did the math. You spend like $1,200 a month.
That's easy.
Because it's easy. It's convenient. It's right there. And so she really wanted to start saving towards buying a house. She wanted to move out of the city. And I was like, I mean, cut down 2/3, make coffee at home. And she's like, well, I can't do that. And I was like, then there's nothing I can do for you.
Transitioning from, like, in our experience, football to like the next phase, but how that applies to those individuals who aren't professional athletes. Like maybe you have a transition to a job, or you get phased out, or you lose your job, or you want to transition to a better job and you just give your 2 weeks. Like, what's the game plan for that? Like, what types of rubrics can you follow to take care of all of your necessities, but still have a good quality of life? And like, do you have any experience or any stories from your transition? Because professional physical therapist here has his own company, had to transition from football to his own business. Like, what can you
She's not physical
share with the youth?
Yeah, no, it's yeah, you always have to prepare for that day, you know. And I was in the real estate industry for about 5 years, and that's where I learned the ups and downs, right? You know, you got peaks and valleys. So when you're making all that money, you got to put that money away, so when the hard times come, you know, you can weather the storm.
Yeah.
You know, I've been unemployed now for 10 months, and I'm finally starting to run out of money, and so I'm getting concerned. But yeah, you know, it's. But thank goodness I had that little nest egg set aside. I just didn't realize that I would be unemployed for so long, because it's a crazy market.
Crazy market.
Yeah, it's a crazy market, and yeah, so. But it's a good experience, you know, because I learned a lot. And listen, I'm not going to say optimistic, I'm a very hopeful person, which is a little different than optimistic.
Confidence in there and resilience.
Exactly.
And that's how it comes across. Like,
Exactly.
yeah, it'll be an obstacle, but it's only going to temper the steel because it's from meteoritic ore, so it's never going to crumble. And all it's going to do is help you get stronger. So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And listen, I just got notified today that a CEO position that I was in my second round of interviews with just got given away to someone else. Someone else earned it before I got there. So that was disappointing.
Yeah.
But I made it to the second round out of 4. Before, you know, I didn't lose it because I didn't pass the interview. I lost it because they put the other person in place before, you know. So that's how it goes, you know. But I haven't been out with my friends in quite a while, and I'm here to just have a good time and take it all in. So I appreciate that you're here. I appreciate the words of wisdom you're going to share with us, and hopefully we'll all find something useful for us all to take home with us.
and then we'll set it up for you.
Okay.
But also, this is really important because a lot of guys don't share what they're going through. A lot of guys don't share their struggles, their whatever. Like, I'm unemployed as well. And I just, again, we got to talk about this, a consulting job with this company that has a product that they want to introduce to professional athletes. Because we have that connection, because we have that experience of being an athlete, we can help the young athletes, Pop Warner, high school coming up, whether it's financial literacy, whether it's health and wellness, whether it's dealing with social media and the market or whatever that might be. We've lived some of that and can share some of that with fuel of full humility. Like, you know, no holds barred. This is what it is. We're not going to hold back. So you will learn from our experiences. And you guys sharing your intimate knowledge of financial literacy and ways guys can find a way out of their hole is so important.
Yeah.
Like you said, a lot of guys will get in that position and they don't want to look up, because if they look up, then they know how bad it is. But if I keep working, I'll find the light, because that's always worked before. You need somebody to say, hey, let's intervene. Let's step in right now and see where you are, because that won't work in the future. Like, that might have worked before, but just putting a Band-Aid on it. So important that we get that message out.
You know, the basic concept of what got you here won't get you there. Right?
What got you here when holy crap
What got you here won't get you there.
won't get you where is there.
wherever you're trying to go.
Yeah.
Success out of where you are right now.
So what does success mean? You know, I mean, that's a whole other conversation.
That's the other thing I wanted to talk about. When you said people have enough money, what does that look like? And that also is something that has to be taught. If you're always chasing that next big paycheck because you want to have a paycheck bigger than the next person or the person that you're competing against, but are you happy? Are you able to enjoy the quality of life, spend that with your family, or recuperate? That's the big question that some people are missing.
That's the thing. It's like, it's a question about
what's enough? When is enough?
Well, it's a question about like rich versus wealthy. You know, like you can have all the money in the world and be poor. You know, you can have no money and be wealthy. Right? I mean, it's really just, it's about your definition of what success is or what wealth is, you know? Like I'm married. I've been with my wife for 13 years. I've got 2 beautiful sons. Like I make a good living. I consider myself to be wealthy.
Yes.
Right? I consider myself to be blessed and very lucky. Right? And the next person, probably not, they might not think that. They might look and be like, oh, well, you could have a bigger house. You could have nicer cars. You could have this. You could have that, you know? But then I mean, this is a whole, like, this is a downward, this is a spiral.
That is a downward spiral, you're right.
It's, I mean, then you get into the idea of like an infinite mindset versus a finite mindset, you know? It's like, are you competing against, you know, yourself, or are you competing against somebody else?
That's the statement right there.
You know,
that's where you have to get to.
Yeah.
How do you also teach people when enough's enough?
You know, we had a lunch with a very, like, ostensibly an incredibly successful individual, right? And we were just chit-chatting, and he had mentioned that he had prioritized work over family, and it had destroyed, in a sense, his family. Now, since then, he had reconciled. Him and his wife were together. He had great relationships with his kids, and I asked him very candidly, because I'm at that point in my career where I could do the same. I could sway towards work, and I could, potentially try to keep my family intact, but I could potentially destroy my family. And I asked him very candidly, I was like, was it worth it? He looked me in the eye. He goes, no. Because it was not worth it. He goes, I could have achieved what I achieved and not destroyed my family.
Say that to the family. Nice.
Yeah.
So important.
I mean, you don't have to choose between wealth and happiness. Between wealth and family, whatever happiness is, your version of happiness, it's different for everybody. And that's, not to bring this back around, but that's something that we bring into our practice, is reminding people. It's like, I want to be rich. It's like, okay, what does that mean? And something we hear all the time is, the various strategies that we use is like, well, if I put $50 a month into this, like, how quickly will I be able to pull out 50 grand? Be like,
Not like that.
it's going to take you about 100 years. How does that sound? People have unrealistic views of like, what can happen. They think it's like, oh, I buy a $1 lottery ticket, I'm going to win the lottery. And how often does that happen, right? And I think probably the easiest way to explain it is, when it comes to finance, everybody wants to get rich quick, but I think Warren Buffett said it best. The people that actually do it understand you have to get rich slow.
So it's almost like weight loss in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like that's how I look at it. And it's funny that we all are used to these get rich quick schemes, especially on social media, where we all think you could just put this money in here. And a lot of our mindsets are almost built around denying everything, to the point where we become, I don't know about you guys, but you become you lack trust when people bring you certain things, to the point where before we even talk to you all, we've already had maybe a bunch of people send stuff our way. We may have gotten burnt, scammed, whatever it may be. So now when we hear you all talk, we probably already lost money, probably already didn't do what was necessary to save the money. Now we're kind of like, now we're starting to watch our pockets. So it's a weird dynamic almost.
And honestly, I've been doing this 10 years. I'm not 10 years old. So I've been there. I've done that, like I've lost the money. I've fallen for the scams, like nobody is impervious to that kind of thing. I'm dealing with a former client right now. Really nice guy, former cop, lives in Texas. I rolled over a good amount of money some years ago. Yeah, it was about 3 years ago, and he was pulling annual income out of it, right? And he comes to me and says, Jake, I want to pull everything out of my account. I was like, okay, like, it's your money, but why? If you don't mind me telling me. He proceeds to tell me about this program that this other person told him about.
I've heard of those.
And so I was like, okay, can I, Mac, it's your money. I'm going to give you your money if you want it, but can I see the documentation first? Because he's like, yeah, this guy gave me a guarantee. I was like, well, that's a first red flag. In finance, there is no guarantees. If anyone says there's a guarantee on anything they give you,
Guaranteed he'll get paid, but.
Yeah. And so I'm looking at it, and so I get the document, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, I looked up the guy's name. Says he's in New York. The only person with that name registered with the SEC is in California. The name of the company doesn't exist. The address in New York he claims to be at, there's just some random building there, right? And so I was like, I sent all of this to my former client, and I was like, I implore you, please don't. And bear in mind, I'm not making anything off of this client anymore. I did the money move 3 years ago. I got paid for that. I haven't been paid by this client since, right? So this is completely unbiased advice for him. And I was like, I implore you, like, please don't do this. This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea. And he sent me the signed forms back to have everything withdrawn. So he went through with it. He sent me the signed forms back to have everything withdrawn. My fiduciary responsibility is to do
exactly what he said, and you advise.
Exactly. It's to tell them what I think is best, but in the end, I have to do what they said.
That's right. That's
right. And so, yeah, so it's like, I wrestled. This was like a 4 or 5 day process, and I was wrestling the whole time. It was like, I know it's about to happen. I don't know, but it's like 99%, but he's of the mind. He's a former cop. So he's like, oh, I investigated this guy. I read an article the other day about a billionaire who got scammed.
Yes.
Like, it happens every day to people much more informed than this individual, right? But it's like, but it wasn't ego, it was desperation. His wife was about to stop working. Her Social Security was not going to be enough to make up the difference in what she was not making. So he heard about this possibility of more money, right? So rather than reducing his means, his spending a little bit, not a lot, a little bit, he thought he would try a get rich quick scheme. And I really like this guy. I work with his daughter too. Like, I truly hope I'm wrong. 100% hope I'm wrong. I don't think I'm going to be though. But it's
great lesson, a great story.
Yeah, it was.
Fortunately, it happened.
It does happen, and a lot of it is out of our control. I mean, Ryan, you tell the story about Ross. He's got a good friend who just lost his job because of stupid circumstances, right? And at the time, I'm telling the story. You tell the story.
At the time, so he worked in Colorado. He worked in the hotel for 2 years, was high up there. And during that time, there was a phase where they just started laying off employees because they just wanted to bring in new people.
Right.
He did his job the right way. And at the time, they just tried to find a way to release him. And in that sense, he had his whole year set up like in Colorado. And it was very abrupt. Like, once it happened,
right to work. Like, sometimes they're like, hey, you know what?
Yeah, exactly. And when that happens, he just felt like he just went right down a hole because he had no plan for what's next. The way they did it just put him in a phase where he just didn't know what to do next with work, where to go. He was pretty much just homeless in a sense of where he's going to work.
Yeah, like, what's next?
Yeah, exactly. So with him, like, unfortunately, it's with a lot of jobs now. A lot of people don't stay in their jobs for over a couple years now. Like 20 years back, I'd say, people would be in their jobs for 10 plus years and they'd have that comfortability.
There's a pension coming. There's 401k.
Yeah, exactly. And when that happens, he just felt like he just went right down a hole because he had no plan for what's next. The way they did it just put him in a phase where he just didn't know what to do next with work, where to go. He was pretty much just homeless in a sense of where he's going to work.
Yeah, like, what's next?
Yeah, exactly. So with him, like, it's unfortunately, it's with a lot of jobs now. A lot of people don't stay in their jobs for over a couple years now. Like 20 years back, I'd say people would be in their jobs for 10 plus years and they'd have that comfortability.
There's a pension coming. Now it's 401k, maybe.
Like, exactly. And with that, people being able to, you know, our job is to educate people and get them on a plan as early as possible. So when that does happen to them, they're prepared for it and they're not stressed out about, oh, how am I going to pay rent? How am I going to pay for that? Like, people are just trying to figure out what's next for them and being able to just have that plan in place. But the thing is, I mean, in the NFL aspects, people get drafted. My grandfather,
You get cut. You get terminated from your job because it's a right to work state. They were like, I don't like the cut of your jib. Fuck out of here. Like, what's that as you recommend? It doesn't matter, professional athletes, regular citizen, because we want to try to get stuff for everybody. What's the first step in that doomsday plan that, holy crap, I lost my job. Maybe they don't have a lot of savings and they have to find a job. They have to figure out to get those necessities paid.
Yep.
And not necessarily like finding a job at a 7-Eleven, but what's the first step, the first two steps that you would offer someone? Be like, this is what I would do if an emergency came up like that.
Seriously, and I wouldn't call it a doomsday plan, but I'll give you my phone number and they can give me a call and I'll give them a job. I will happily hire them.
That's awesome.
I will happily hire them.
Like, that's the first, that is the solution. Like, I'll get you a job. No other financial advisor said that. They said you can find unemployment. You can try to sell items. You can try to find ways to like do TaskRabbit or gig jobs.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever said that. Like, I'll find you a job. I'll make a job for you.
I will. Yeah. Well, so I mean, just speaking in terms of like my hiring process, I'm one of the managing directors at my company, and my team is, you know, like culturally, like gender-wise, the most diverse, right? But it's because I have a very diverse background myself. You know, I mentioned earlier I'm a veteran. I worked for the government after I got out of the military. I have bachelor's and master's in fields completely unrelated to finance. I worked crappy retail jobs. You know, I've done a lot of different things. But all of that, what that's done is it's made it easier for me to relate to a wider group of people, right? I can tell stories for days, you know? And so whenever I hire somebody, Ryan and I were talking about this earlier, whenever I hire somebody, I never ask them about their education. Realistically, I don't really care what kind of college degree you got or where you went to school or who your family is. Like, I don't care. What I look for is social skills, you know, like how bad do you want it? Like, what are your goals?
The important thing.
Yeah, the stuff that actually matters, that makes people successful, you know? And, like I always ask everybody, I ask them a question. If money was no object and you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? And I always have to ask it twice because the first one was always like, I would change the world. I would eliminate disease. I would eliminate war. You know, like these like great things, but like these unrealistic things that nobody actually means, right? I had one gentleman one time tell me he would figure out how to create a clean water system for every city in the world.
We already have one of those.
I know. Well, I was like, that's amazing. Like, that would serve so many people well. Now, what would you, like, really do, right? And I tell them what I would do, right? And
What would you get?
so what would I do? So I you know, I follow the NFL. I follow college football. I'm a very big fantasy football player, okay? I used to write for a fantasy football, like, publication, right? And I would do like player analysis, and I usually like to do the quarterbacks. And I always I really enjoy that. I like doing the deep dives and the analysis and watching the games and all of that. And so I would probably I love what I do, and I would continue to do what I do full time, but I would dedicate more time to that, right? Just because I really enjoy it. If I pulled out my fantasy app right now and showed you my teams, you'd be looking at like, how do you have time for your life and that, right? And I actually was talking to Ryan earlier. It's like, I need to cut some teams. I don't have time. I guarantee you I'm starting hurt players this week. I just can't keep up with it. But whenever I tell them that, they always end up telling me what they want to do, right? What they really want to do. It takes some honesty and some vulnerability to get it back, you know? And I get all kinds of answers after that. Like apparently everybody wants to do one of two, or I shouldn't say everybody. 75% of people either want to go into music producing or write a children's book. But yeah, no, I mean, it's.
So what's the one thing you would share with someone like these are, like you said, the necessities we can build. It doesn't matter if you have a job, if you lost your job. What are the necessities of financial literacy? You should be thinking about this. Like if it's an high yield savings account, if it's investing, if it's an S&P like Warren Buffett said. Like what is that thing? Is it in the consistency or frequency? Like how would someone approach it if they have $50 of discretionary money they can get, or $50,000 or $500? What would that look like? How would you say?
So I'm going to give you two things, okay? And they're more higher level, but I can happy to elaborate. The first one is ask for help. Don't Google. Don't
ChatGPT.
You can ChatGPT if you want, but that's an impartial. Yeah, like you got to exactly. You got to ask the right questions, like we talked about. So ask for help, and ask for help from the right people.
How do you find the right people?
Don't ask your neighbor who's in the exact same position as you. Right? They drive the same car. They live in the same house. Don't ask them. Okay? I'm sure they're a fantastic person, but if they're no better off than you are, then they probably aren't doing anything different. Right? And that's just basic logic, right? So ask for help, and tomorrow is too late. Those are the two most important things. Now, as far as like strategies, the strategies are based on the individual, right? I mean, if you're an individual, you have a husband or a wife, you got kids, you got a house, you have, a significant amount of the non-negotiables, then we want to look at things that are going to protect those while growing your wealth, right? If you don't have those, then we probably still want to look in that same area, but in a smaller, sort of amount, and then look more towards like, how do you just grow your own wealth, right? If you're a single individual, you have more options because you don't necessarily have to worry about anybody but yourself.
Right.
Now, in my experience, it's very rare to come across somebody who doesn't have to worry about anybody else, right? You always.
Not all right.
Well, at any age. I've met 22-year-olds that come through the hiring process that are the main source of income for their family. They got a mom and a little brother they support, or a dad and a little sister they support, right? You never know somebody's backstory, right? There's those sweatshirts. I'm a veteran, so on my feeds, I get all this stuff, but you don't know what fights people are fighting, right? But like, you have to tailor whatever you're doing to the person you're talking to, and that's one of the things that we do is we have a drawn out 6-step process that we walk people through. But it's general, it's the minute steps, the step 1A, 1B, 1C.
But that's good. That's fun.
Well, it has to be. Yeah.
It's easy to digest. It's not a snot there. Gold cakes in your face. You can take a bite. You kind of get going in that right direction, and it's encouraging. Like that's really important.
Well, it absolutely is. If you take a drink out of a water bottle, you quench your thirst. If you pour the whole thing in your face, you waterboard yourself. It's not good. It's not fun. Nobody learns anything or gets any better from that, right? And so that educational workshop I did last night, there was a couple there. I didn't have a great turnout, but I had a great result. I had, I think it was like 15 people. It was crappy weather. I had like 15 people show up. It was 7 units, but I set 6 appointments from it. And the 7th couple said, "This was great. We want to meet, but there was a lot of information. We need to digest it." I was like, "Absolutely. We'll reach out again next month, see if you're ready."
Yeah.
It's one of those things like you can't force it down people's throat. You can lead a horse to water, but as I say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't hold its head under. And as much as important as this is, and like financial literacy, in my humble opinion, is everything. It's the basis. It should be the first thing taught in schools. Forget reading. Teach them how to read a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Show them how to do a budget sheet. Right. That should be the first thing they learn.
Understand
right.
what a budget is and what
exactly.
Yes.
And Yeah.
Cause just understanding, like so many people, you get to a position where it's like you're in over your head, and then you just get frustrated. But when you actually map stuff out, where I don't know, I did a budget maybe a month and a half ago for the first time in I don't know how long, and my dad raised me on like a budget. It's like, yo, this is what we make, you know. And I remember those conversations from a young age, and I did it myself, and it's like, damn. Here I thought like, all right, I'm making this amount. All right, I put that towards that. And I couldn't figure out how every month, like, yo, why am I not saving as much? Why am I coming up short? This thing pops up and I feel like I can afford it. You don't realize until you look at it on paper, for me at least.
Yeah.
But after that initial shock where I was like, yo, like, this is a problem. You know what I mean?
What it is.
Then I could take little steps. And every one of those little steps, it may have been small, but it just felt like me working towards the right direction. So it actually, going back to like that happiness thing that you said, I felt good about it. Even though it was a small step, I felt good. Like, this is something intentional. Now every month, whether it's a Netflix, whether it's this that I'm not using, that's $20, $30 a month, just right there. That's what for the year. That's $350, whatever it may be. You know. So it was those little steps just helped me, at least seeing the big picture.
I mean, that's it. You know, there's I won't, obviously no free shout outs here, but there's this gentleman that does a lot of speaking, and he talks about, and I think it's really important. He talks about how sometimes the first step a person needs to take is so tiny and small and minute that it's almost embarrassing, and they won't take it because they won't lower themselves to that point. You know, like something as simple as like making your bed in the morning. You know, like get up, make your bed. You've accomplished something, right? But sometimes people will not lower themselves to that point. So they will not take that first step, which means they can't take the second step, right? It really is as simple as just taking that first step. You know, when we do our budgeting sheets with our clients, our budgeting sheets have like a flow chart, like a flow to them, right? We do the non-discretionary, the discretionary, and then everything feeds into a number, which is what they should have left over at the end of each month, right? And I always ask them before we show them that number, I always ask them, okay, on an average month, what do you have left over? And sometimes they're like, oh, I usually have a couple $100, or I have $500. I usually have $1,000 left over. And I'm like, okay, well, according to this, you should be negative like $200 every month, right?
$500.
Yeah, or yeah, exactly. Or like, oh, you say you only have 200. According to this, you should have like $2,000 left over each month. And every time we do that, and every once in a while, you'll have somebody who's like, oh, I usually have about 500 left over, and their number is like plus or minus $100 of that. And you're like, fantastic. You're actually on top of what you're spending. That's great, right? But when they always look at us, we always have the same process. Like, okay, and this works better at different times of year, obviously. If we do the budgeting sheet and the holidays are coming, that we can't. The next step can't be taken then, because what we do is we tell them, go back. We want you to track your spending for the next month. Save every receipt, count every dollar, right? And then when we get back together, we're going to update this based on your actual spending, okay? If you have kids, the best time to do this is like January to like July, right? If you don't have kids, you can do it pretty much anytime from like January to October, right? Summertime is a little bit harder because, you know, you spend more in the summertime sometimes, but even still, you know, usually it's okay. But when they come back, they're like, oh, I spent X amount on this. And it's always two things. It's always a certain coffee chain and a certain online ordering, you know, like online product service, right? And it's just like, you know, I'm guilty of this too. You know, my wife calls me the other day. I'm sitting in my office and she's like, hey, the boys and I just left Costco. We just spent, I was like, don't tell me. Please, God, don't tell me how much you just spent. She's like, we just spent an hour and a half there. I was like, that makes me feel worse. I would have rather known the dollar amount than how much time. It is a discount. It's a big box store, yeah.
It's not the we'll tell you.
Exactly. Yeah, no shit. No, sorry. No free shout out. But, yeah.
So one of the things I think, I don't know if you can hear me, but one of the things that I think most people that plan correctly for is the chaos. When you look at the budget, most people don't put in that I'm one hospital visit away from my budget being blown up, or I'm one sick parent away from my budget being blown up. You know,
So that's where an emergency fund comes into play, right? You got to have what we always shoot for is 6 months of fixed expenses, right? 6 months of fixed expenses. I had some clients when COVID hit that I've been working with for a little bit longer, and they had like 9 months plus. They were laid off, but they were fine.
Yeah.
I got some very nice thank you cards from some of my clients and a ton of referrals, because they're like, the emergency fund that you helped us set up and kept, honest about, kept us square during COVID. It took me 10 months to find a job. It kept us square.
You at every turn.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's something to do.
Well, what's interesting about that is I realized early in my career, saving money sucks. Nobody likes saving money, right? We like to spend money. It gives that little dopamine hit, right? That's why people get addicted to shopping. And so I realized that if you help, you're my best friend. You're our best friend right now. But what I realized is that if you help people save for a potential emergency alongside something they get to look forward to, it makes it easier, right? So we always help people set up an emergency fund. I've never been able to come up with a better name for it, but an emergency fund and a fun fund. A fun fund, right? So what I realized, the first couple I did this with, they wanted a pair of custom Harleys, all right? So what we did was we set up 2 accounts. We set up the emergency fund and we set up the fun fund. And because they were saving money into the Harley fund, they automatically started saving money into the emergency fund at the same time. It became habit, second nature. And so every time we would meet, because we always meet with our clients either annually or every 6 months, whenever we would meet, they would always be so excited to show me how much they'd saved. And I would always ask, how's the emergency fund going? They're like, oh, the emergency fund is the exact same. Yeah. Fantastic, right? They eventually did, 2022 slowed them down a little bit with the hit to inflation and rising costs, but they didn't eventually receive they did save up enough to get the Harleys. Coincidentally, about 9 months later, the wife got pregnant. So the Harleys have been sitting in they've been sitting in their garage as like really nice paperweights for like the last 18 months, but is what it is. But no, I figured out a way to kind of address the lack of enjoying saving by giving them something to look forward to. And I've helped people save for all kinds of things: Harleys, houses, trips to Italy. Like, it doesn't matter. Golf trip, yeah, it doesn't matter. It just has to be something that has value for you. Like I collect things. I collect whiskey. I collect pocket knives. So I like to save up for that. I don't just spend money, randomly. I save up. I budget for it, although my wife probably doesn't believe that I do, but I do. And when I save up enough to get it, I get it, And so, I don't know, financial literacy is just, I feel like people avoid it because they're afraid of how complicated it can be.
And expose it.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my God, yeah. You've obviously not, nobody gets naked in our conference room. But like, I've had people come into our conference room before and just lay everything out, lay it all out, break down. I had a situation with a couple 3 years ago. Something's good is happening. 3 years ago, they came in. They had a very nice couple. The husband was about a week away from retiring. They had like $3.5–4 million at the time. They'd worked their whole lives. They'd saved very well. They did very well for themselves. And they came in and they said, "This is like the 6th meeting we've been to with an advisor. All of them have said we're okay." And so I put my pen down. I was like, "Why are we talking then? Like, I could be talking to somebody else right now." And they're like, "Well, we wanted to hear what you had to say." It came from one of my other educational seminars. And I was like, "Okay, I see you brought a folder. You have all your documents." And so they passed me their folder, and I'm sitting there, and actually it was one of my colleagues that was working with me on this case. And I'm looking through their statements, and I pull out the summary statement for each one of their main accounts. It was 4 of them. And they had the biggest company, right? And so I'm looking at it, and I'm pulling out my phone, and I'm doing some research on each, fund, because every company has their own proprietary funds, right? But it's the same mutual funds in every single one. They're just named something different. And so I'm going through, and I'm looking up these different ticker symbols and going through it, and I'm writing stuff down. And I get to the end. It took about 20 minutes, right? And at the end, I was like, "Okay, every advisor you've spoken to thus far said you're okay." And they're like, "Yes." I was like, okay, how in depth did they go? And they're like, well, they did what you did. They looked at everything. They said, yeah, we look good. And I was like, okay, did they talk to you anything about diversification? And they're like, well, yeah, I mean, you see we're at 4 different companies. I was like, yes, you're at 4 different companies. And then I flipped everything around. I showed them my notes and I said, but 75% of all of your holdings across these 4 companies are identical.
So
It was the illusion of diversification, right? They had 4 different companies, but almost everything they had was the same. And so if one of those companies, if one of their holdings took a hit, everything was going down. And they were a very nice couple. I showed this to them, and this is not the first time this has happened, but I showed this to them, and they're like, thank you so much. Like, we were completely unaware. I never heard from them again.
yeah,
I never heard from them again. We made a proposal. We're like, what we want to do is very simple. We don't even want to take all of it. We want to take, I think it was 2/3 we proposed. We want to take 2/3 of it, roll it over here, and actually diversify. Now, the 75% that they had was a good 75%. It was the Magnificent Seven and a bunch of other like good growth, good dividend providing mutual funds and ETFs. But we're like, we still want to be there, but we only want to do 30%. We want to spread you out over these other ones, these other dividend portfolios. Like, we want to give you like a legitimate chance to be successful in retirement. And never heard from them again.
yes,
Another gentleman I spoke to, he was a professor in Boston. He was 52. He had twin 11-year-old daughters, right? Yeah, crazy. His wife was I believe she worked in like accounting or something, but she was the primary breadwinner. She was the decision maker, right? And so he and I had a couple of conversations. He had about $2 million. All of it was in tech. I spoke to him in November 2021. You guys know what happened in 2022, right? The FANG index. He was about 90% in the FANG index. I made a pitch to him. He liked it. We just couldn't find a time that worked with his wife. Ended up falling off the calendar. Tried to reconnect. Could never get him back on the calendar. He sent me all of his investments, right? And I told him, I was like, you need to spread this out. Like, this is too leveraged into one area. Like, you need to spread this out. And I wasn't the only one saying that there was going to be a correction. Like, half the industry was saying there was going to be a correction. I went back in like July of 22 because I tried to reach out to him again, and I looked at his holdings that he had. I seriously hope he made a change. Like, he was a really great guy, and if he didn't make a change, his $2 million was down to about 1.1 at the bottom. Now, obviously, it's come back. So if he left everything alone, he hasn't recovered everything, but he's gotten most of it, right? But yeah, he lost almost 50%. He would have lost almost 50%. But
if he would have diversified it, he didn't have to take that loss.
He didn't.
Still got in on sale.
Yeah,
when it dipped.
Exactly. And it's we're not claiming to be geniuses or the perfect investors or anything. But what we understand is that you have to protect yourself. You have to protect your family, your assets. You can't time the market. Anyone who says you can time the market is lying or trying to sell you something. Right? You can't time the market. You read any article, you open up 2, investment publications. One's saying there's going to be a correction tomorrow. The other one's saying it's going to continue for the next 10 years. There's no consensus on any of this, right? And so you have to pay attention to trends. But at the end of the day, you have to just make sure that, God forbid, something does happen in the market, you are protected, right? I have a very candid approach to investing with my clients. I tell them, do not ever call me in a panic, right? Don't call me in a panic, because if you're young enough that you're still leveraged in that way, that you're taking a hit, you're okay. You have time to recover, right? If you are close enough to retirement, or you're conservative enough that you want to, you don't want to be that leveraged, we have already planned for that. We already have something in place that anything that's still invested or leveraged, you can afford to lose. You don't want to lose it, but you can afford to lose it, right? And so I tell my clients, don't call me in a panic. right? Because realistically, you call me, you say, sell everything, the market's crashing. I can't just click a button and make it so. I have to go in, I have to put in an order form, I got to sell everything. It's going to take 24 hours to process. By the time everything sells and the cash is back in your account, it's 48 hours later, right? You sold on the downhill or at the bottom. And now you call me, everything's coming back up, and you're like, buy everything back. You don't have enough money to buy everything back. We'll buy back what we can, right? And I had a client, really nice couple. I manage, so I have a big life insurance policy for him because his 401k was garbage. And so he has a big, we call it an IUL. He has a big IUL that he's using for retirement savings, right? And then I manage his wife's investments and their daughters. They have 4 daughters. I manage their daughters on like college funds and Roth IRAs and future investments and whatnot. And he called me in January, right in that little 5% blip that we had there, right after Deep Seek or whatever it was came out. And he calls me, and I could hear the tone of the voice. And he's like, "Hey, he's like, hey Jake, how's it going?" I was like, "Oh, it's great, man. Everything's good. You know, it's like a little hiccup today, but nothing out of the ordinary. These things are gonna happen, especially when something big, happens. And yeah, no, everything's good. How are you? How's your wife? How's the girls?" And I can hear the tone in his voice just immediately relax. He's like, "Oh man, everything's good. Yeah, just wanted to call, check in. Yeah, everything's all set." Well, he was nervous and he wanted to see how I was going to react. Right? Like, if I'm not panicking, the caveat to the, don't call me panicked is, if I call you, we need to do something.
Right.
We need to make a change. Right? If I call you, something's happening, we need to make a change. Right? If I don't call you, don't call me panicked, please. Because it's going to take too long to react before we can really make any significant changes.
Then it might really happen.
Well, then it is, like if you sold at the bottom of the COVID bubble, and then tried to buy back a month later, you're not buying back what you sold, What you need to do, and this is basic, this is basic investing. You buy at the bottom. I'm of the mind, so we do portfolio-based investing, right? We don't invest in individual mutual funds. I personally believe it's very, very difficult to pick a great mutual fund, right? Not because they're hard to find, but because most people don't have the patience to hold them long enough, right? I bought a mutual fund at IPO, which means when it went public. I bought it at IPO, and in the last 2 years, it has increased 1,500%. It's done really, really well. But it was sitting at like $9 a share for a very long time, right? Most people want to sell things when they don't do well. They want to try to get rich quick, right? You can't do that. Investing is not about getting rich quick. It's about getting rich slow. You have to have that long-term time horizon. And for folks who don't, they try to go into day trading. If you can make that work, fantastic. I don't have the emotional stability to day trade.
More anxiety.
Oh, way more anxiety.
I love the way you said like that. That's the feeling of the top. You earn wealth slow, not fast.
Yeah.
Fast, you're gonna make decisions. You're gonna be rash. You're gonna follow trends that could go back down. It's about the slow churn because you're gonna continue on that track.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, if you think about it, and sometimes I'll whiteboard this out. If you think about it, you look at the S&P. Right? The S&P is what everyone bases things off of. The whole world runs on the S&P, right? If you look at the S&P, yes, there are dips, but if you look at the whole thing, it's always up.
Always up.
The dips that happen are in an upward trajectory. Like they're still moving upward, right? So you just have to figure it out. If you're paying attention, then you can figure out where, maybe not where the bottom is, but like close to it. Personally, we had that dip in April, right? I threw a ton of money into the market, just personal money. I was like, this is not the bottom, but I think it's close, right? I threw it in. It was like 1% above the bottom. Like over the next week, it dipped like another 1.2%, right? But I left it in. I think I threw more in, right? Since then, I'm up like 25%.
And also,
It's about not. Financial in general is about not panicking. It's about doing the slow stuff, taking the small steps, and just continuing to do it. People are so used to instant gratification now that if they don't see a benefit immediately, if Uber Eats isn't at their door in 20 minutes, they call screaming, right? It's the same thing with money. If you call, we have this type of plan, the IUL, where it's not going to return anything for like the first 3 or 4 years generally, right? It is a long-term plan.
3 or 4? I've heard like 10 years worth of it.
No. So it'll the value between your contributions and the value in the account will even out at 10 years, but it takes about 3 or 4 years to start seeing value. Yeah, but like I have one of these myself. My sons each have 2. I set up one of myself and my dad. My dad's in finance also. I set up one for my sons when they were about a month old, and my dad set up one for them also. And I just throw money into it, right? And this is a long-term savings plan. It is not meant to be used immediately. Now, coincidentally, you can use them immediately. They're actually really popular with like real estate investors because you can dump a ton of money into it, pull it out, and then reinvest it elsewhere while it's still growing. It's a topic for another day, maybe. But you have to be able to just buckle down, continue to work. I threw money at a company that I bought a minority share in, a tech company about 4 years ago. Right, I bought it in a small amount, 4 figures, and I'm just like, just do your thing, right? I don't even care. They told me a couple of years ago that if I wanted to, I could cash out 80% of my investment for like low 6 figures. I was like, no, thank you. Keep it, please. Can I give you more? Like, keep it. And they're like, okay, sounds good, right? Like, I'm just letting that rise. I don't even think about it. Yeah, you just gotta let it. It's. I don't know. I just wish, I wish this stuff was taught in schools. I wish that people were more open to learning about it. Like, send me a message on Instagram. You want to learn about this stuff? I will take an hour just to sit there and teach you. No strings attached. Right? Like,
that'll be a resource for conversations like this, because you said a lot. You have a lot of very deep points that will resonate not only through our community but outside of our community. Like, I would really like to see that happen.
Yeah. Even though they're not teaching them in schools, we'll teach them. Yeah. We'll teach them. It's an opportunity. It's just an opportunity to learn, because a lot of the stuff we learn in school sometimes we don't even pay attention to it anyway. So we got an opportunity now with all the technology to use it in a good way.
I never even made it to calculus. I'm not great at math.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
you're disciplined and you know how to follow a plan.
But I'm disciplined. I understand how money works, and I can follow a plan.
Because
you don't have to know. You don't have to be able to build a bridge to understand how your paycheck works and how taxes work. Right? I was doing some work with a basketball player out of Brown, who was making NIL money, and we set up 3 things for him. I set up one of those IULs, set up a brokerage investment account, and a high yield savings. And he's just dumping money into all 3 of them.
Good job.
Yeah.
Come on now. Thank you guys for coming out.
Of course, yeah. All right, so my name is Jacob Graff, Managing Director, Rise North Capital, out of Braintree, Massachusetts. Former military, ex-military, Navy Seabees. Legitimately just looking to help people understand how their finances work.
Looking forward to working with you in the future. I think we all are. Obviously, we're at American Whiskey. This is the first of a lot of chats that I think we can put together.
Yeah. Let's let Ryan do it.
Yeah, this gentleman right here, Ryan, is the reason why a lot of this came together. All of this came together.
Yeah.
And we're thankful for it, because a lot of people need this information.
Yeah.
Athletes, but just people in general. As we discussed, they're not teaching these things in school, but we can't just keep it that way. We just do what we can do on our end.
Yeah.
So
we just supplement.
So
it all starts with the first step.
The first step, like you said, and as long as Jude's okay with it, hopefully this will be something that we continue to partner on and just educating in whatever way we can.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're out in the communities. We're working with a few church groups right now in Massachusetts and Texas, and yeah,
we'll just keep building. We'll build.
Yeah, seriously, the more education we give, the easier our job gets. So like, we just want to educate people. Like,
I'm looking forward to working with you in the future. I think we all are. Obviously, we're at American Whiskey. This is the first of a lot of chats that I think we can put together. Yeah, this gentleman right here, Ryan, is the reason why a lot of this came together, all of this came together. And we're thankful for it because a lot of people need this information, athletes, but just people in general. As we discussed, they're not teaching these things in school, but we can't just keep it that way. We just do what we can do on our end. So hopefully we just supplement. So hopefully this could be something, the first step, like you said, and as long as Jude's okay with it, hopefully this could be something that we can continue to partner on and just educate it in whatever way we can. So we're looking forward to it.
Very much.
Yeah.